Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Legal Blend podcast. My name is Kaefer Garcia, partner and owner of Garcia Law in Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey. And before we introduce our special guest today, I wanted to highlight where we are today. So as you can see, there's a little bit of a change of scenery. And today we brought you to Rutherford Coffee Company on Park Avenue in Rutherford, New Jersey. And the reason why this coffee shop is a bit special to me and our office is the fact that there's a little bit of a Colombian flair to it, right? So the owners are from Colombia. They grew up around coffee beans, Colombian coffee scene back in their home country. And if you come in and walk in, you'll see a beautiful scenery of paintings on the wall. They have an abundance of menu options from un pan de bono to una arepa de choclo to coffee, cold brew, anything you can think of they have. But the beautiful part of it is that they do have your guava pastries right aside from that. And it's just a great environment to be in. So whenever I like to relax, I come in here. The owners are great. They gave us this opportunity today to film here on site. And I definitely invite you to come over, Park Avenue in Rutherford, New Jersey, because as soon as you walk in, you're welcomed and it's a great atmosphere. Please check it out. Now, for today's special guest, we have Edward Mauricio. And Edward Mauricio is from the Mauricio Insurance Agency. Ed has been in the industry for about eight and a half years, right, Ed?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to have him here because he is, for us, our go-to expert, whether it's car insurance, homeowners insurance, small business insurance, life insurance, and any questions you may have or I may have, I definitely always go to Ed. And I always recommend Ed, right? I tell you, Ed, all my clients, pick up the phone, call Ed, introduce you via email. So we have Ed today to discuss a bit about home insurance, car insurance, life insurance, and some other things today, right?
Yeah.
Ed, how are you today?
I'm doing good, Kaefer. And I want to start by thanking you for having me here. And greatly appreciate the partnership that we've started since I opened up shop and the friendship we now have, right? So yeah, again, thank you for having me.
No problem. Ed, and for our viewers, where are you based out of?
So I'm based out of Hudson County,
Okay.
specifically Jersey City. I also have a satellite office in Union City, New Jersey.
Gotcha. Before we get into it, I just want to remind everyone, if you hear noise in the background, we are actually on site at the coffee shop, so you're going to get sound bites of what actually goes on in here as well. But Ed, Hudson County, did you grow up in Hudson County?
I did. I actually grew up on the block where I now have my satellite office in Union City.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I moved here. I was about 6 years old in the Union City, New Jersey. Went to school in Union City, New Jersey my whole life. Moved over to North Bergen, New Jersey, which is a neighboring town, and I've been there since.
And I have to ask, because our viewers are probably going to have that same question. What nationality? What ethnicity?
Father's Dominican, mother's Ecuadorian.
Gotcha. And do you speak Spanish?
I do. I'm fluent. Yes.
Gotcha. Now, Ed, I want to start off by asking you, you're a business owner, right? So what drives you? What drives you to get up every morning and go through everything that has to do with your business?
As cliche as it sounds, having a kid is definitely number one. And really, even deeper than that is making sure I set the right example, right? And not necessarily by being just the business owner who works 70, 80 hours a week, but
Right.
maintaining the balance, right? And
Okay.
and being present and showing how important family is, as important as, working hard and building something that you can be proud of in the future, right? Maybe handing down at some point, but also teaching the values of working hard, being self-made, like I always say, and always giving back to the community, right?
Okay.
Community is always looking, is always watching. As an insurance broker in the Latino community, it's an area that the Latino community isn't necessarily well versed in. So, providing value and always being a servant of my community.
And you mentioned you have a child.
Yes.
So if she watches this 5 years from now, what message would you send to her as being a business owner?
Just don't be completely money driven.
Okay, that's a good one.
My drive, like you asked before, where does it come from? Remember to give back. Remember to provide value. Remember to work on your legacy, right? No one's going to remember the money that you leave behind. What they're going to remember is the value that you provided to them, the lessons that you taught them, the help that you gave them. So don't get too caught up in the money. and make sure that you dedicate time, effort to all other things that matter.
Okay, no, that's a good one. That's a good one. Now let's get into homeowners insurance, right?
Mm.
So I always refer you for homeowners insurance whenever I have a buyer who calls me and says, "Hey, I'm buying a home, a condo, whatever it is. When should I think about getting a home insurance quote?" So before I answer that, because I know that answer, you tell
Yeah.
me, what do you recommend?
You should initially look out for an insurance quote for homeowners insurance right after the inspection, right? Because the homeowners inspection is going to be the determining factor as to whether or not you're going to move forward with the purchase. So maybe that home inspection says that there's a bunch of factors that need to be remediated on the home, and you don't want to move forward because negotiations between the buyer and the seller aren't, they aren't able to hash it out. If you don't, you got to move on.
Right.
But if you do decide that you're going to move forward with the purchase, go right after that. You need the homeowner's insurance quote, especially in this day and age. We have a hard market, and it's difficult to obtain insurance for certain property types and in certain areas as well. So right before the appraisal, after the inspection, is where I'd say go out and get your quotes.
Now, Ed, I'm sure viewers watching this are saying, well, I go to my State Farm agent, I go to my Progressive account, I go to my Allstate agent. What is different about the Mauricio Insurance Agency? Why do you stick out aside from those agents?
So to begin, it's always a lot easier when you have options, right?
Mhm.
So imagine instead of having to go to a Kia dealership or a BMW dealership, you had a dealership that offered all different types of vehicles for you, right?
Okay.
That's what we have a broker for. There's car brokers, and I am an insurance broker. I work with over 30 insurance carriers, which I mean provides all the value in the world because it's a one-stop shop. So if you have a certain type of property and it can't be insured by Progressive, guess what? They've got a couple other options that may insure it. Right. So it's the optionality part of it that provides value for the client.
So, homeowners insurance, you get a quote, right? If you're getting a mortgage, you have to get a home insurance quote. Now, what are things to look out for? One comes to mind that I get a lot of questions about is what happens if the property's in a flood zone? What happens there? How does that affect a home insurance policy?
So to begin a homeowner's insurance policy, some carriers will not want to insure a home that is near a flood zone
Okay.
or a coastal property, right?
Okay.
Which more often than not is probably in a flood zone. But you're also going to be impacted by a separate policy, which usually is a flood insurance policy. There are very limited policies out there that do include flood insurance, but 99 times out of 100, you're going to have to purchase a separate flood insurance policy, which can get expensive, right?
So, what is a negative, one or two negatives of a home being in a flood zone?
From an insurance perspective, it's the insurance premiums, right? You're going to be paying a
Right.
lot more for insurance, but then you can also think about in a situation where you wanted to resell that home, flood insurance claims actually have to be disclosed now by the seller, right?
In future sales.
In future sales, correct. So that can potentially impact your buyer pool if you were looking to sell. So those are two things right off the bat that I can think of. The cons
Right.
for purchasing or owning a property that's in a flood zone.
Understood. Understood. Now, when an individual or individuals think about getting a quote for home insurance or purchasing home insurance, is there anything that they should be thinking about? Any factors that they should consider?
I mean, absolutely. To begin with the coverage, right? I know everyone's looking to shop rate. Everyone's
Right.
looking for a cheaper price.
Right.
But you always want to get the biggest bang for your buck, right? You
Right.
want to have, I guess, somewhat of a budget and understand before you get into the purchase and decide, okay, this is 100% the property that I want to move forward with. That's why after an inspection, you look for quotes.
Right.
You want to decide whether or not the budget that you're going to have to set aside for insurance is good for you. And within that budget, just make sure that you obtain as much coverage as possible. And by as much, I don't necessarily mean you get all the coverage in the world, but the coverages that are relevant to you and your risk tolerance. Some people may want or be okay with a higher insurance deductible, whereas there's a lot of people out there who are more risk averse and may want a lower deductible. Those are some of the factors that I would pay attention to, and always a conversation that I have with my clients up front before deciding which insurance policy to go with.
What's the number one tip you would give to our viewers of something to avoid when purchasing home insurance? What comes to mind?
The number one thing that I would advise clients to shy away from when purchasing homeowners insurance is what I just mentioned, rate shopping, right?
Okay.
Don't just pay attention to the rate. Get as much as you can for your buck, but also don't fixate on the carrier, the insurance company, the name. For instance, I work with, again, over 30 carriers, and all are A plus or better AM Best rated, right? What
Okay.
that means is they're in good financial standing, which is really what you should be focusing on when purchasing home insurance. Make sure that the insurance company that you're purchasing insurance from or with is in good financial standing.
Okay.
Because what that means is that in the future, if you have any claims, there's a very small possibility that they won't pay out on that claim because they're insolvent.
Gotcha. Okay. Definitely. Something to keep an eye out for. Now, you definitely do homeowners insurance. We know that, right? But another practice area that we see a lot of mention of it because we have to deal with it, and that's life insurance policies in family cases, right? So I know you have a lot of experience in homeowners insurance, but I also send you clients when we're about to settle a divorce, and let's say the marital settlement agreement says there should be a life insurance policy to support or cover a child support obligation, right? So us attorneys, we determine by certain calculations how much coverage a child should have based on that child support obligation. Can our clients call you for that? Or can you do that for them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a good point you bring up because it's extremely important for clients to obtain life insurance for a child in that situation, right? What are the parents' plans for the future? Do you want to have a college fund, in the case that one of the two parents passes?
Right.
You want those kind of things taken care of, right? Expenses throughout the early years, later years of the child's life. So in conjunction with their attorney, you in this case, decide how much life insurance is sufficient for the future.
Now, you were talking about life insurance, and something just came into mind, and I'm sure you handle it because when I refer you clients, some of them say this, right? Some clients say, "Well, life insurance, that's just a scam. Why do I need life insurance? I'm healthy. What am I paying something monthly for something that may be used? I am going to pass away one day, but why should I pay for it monthly now, right?" What would you say to that? I'm sure you see that.
Yeah, of course, 100%. And the simple response to that is that you don't need insurance until you need it, right?
Right.
So it's really having the conversation with the client and making sure that you let them know what the value of life insurance is, right?
Okay.
And I think sometimes having conversations with clients about previous experiences with other clients
Mhm.
helps them kind of get a good understanding as to why they should obtain life insurance.
Let's paint a picture for the viewers, right? I might have a client. I do an email introduction to you. What can they expect after I introduce them to you? After that, if they're purchasing homeowners insurance, for example, what is this step? What is the process? Because some people haven't gone through this process,
Yeah.
right? Can you shed light on that?
Yeah, so specifically for homeowners
Yep.
insurance. So an initial call, right? Have a conversation about the first thing I ask is, listen, do you own any other properties? It's extremely important to understand that not all homeowners insurance policies are created equal. There
Okay.
are different policies out there depending on the ownership type
Right.
and what the purpose of the property is for, right?
Mm.
If it's a primary residence, if it's a vacation home, that all makes a difference in the type of policy and the coverages that you should have within that policy.
Okay.
So just kind of have a more in-depth conversation of what their properties, their assets look like, and get to know them, right? Because this is a relationship that I'm establishing with your clients,
Right.
and take it from there. Just make them feel comfortable because some parts of these conversations aren't necessarily comfortable for a lot of clients,
Right.
right? So it's building that rapport from the beginning as much as possible, and yeah, build a good relationship with them.
If I may ask, Ed, growing up in Hudson County, is there anything that you experienced growing up in, the certain town where you grew up or Hudson County, what that led you to explore this industry, right? Insurance, life insurance, homeowners insurance, car insurance. There's anything that triggered you to go this route?
So I actually started in insurance. It was my senior year in high school.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with co-ops,
Yeah.
but
Just
yeah.
doing one
So
right now.
yep. So I got a co-op my senior year in high school, and I worked for a small independent brokerage in Hudson County.
Okay.
And at first it was just a job,
Hmm.
but I worked with some individuals who were actually passionate about the industry, right?
Hmm.
And I think being surrounded with multiple people who did care about insurance, who really were knowledgeable about insurance, the industry had been in it in a long time. Being surrounded by that kind of people, it really kind of you know uh, jolted something.
Okay.
I was actually in banking for a few years
Hmm.
in between. So I left insurance. I was in banking for a few years before I opened up my business. But I always kept touch with the insurance industry. And really understanding insurance as a young adult and seeing all of the issues. For instance, my mom, a homeowner, would always have conversations with me specifically
Hmm.
about her homeowner's insurance, her auto insurance. A lot of people within my circle reached out to me for those kind of things. And
Okay.
understanding insurance helped me see how underinsured a lot of people were, and
Gotcha.
the lack of understanding how they were exposing themselves to a lot of liability that they weren't covered for, right? But on the flip side, other outside of seeing all the individuals who really cared, who genuinely cared about people that they helped out in the industry, I did see a lot of people who didn't necessarily keep their client's best interest in mind, right? So seeing that out there was what kept me interested in the industry.
Hmm.
And having a daughter, your mindset kind of changes. Uh,
Right.
Purchasing property, I'm now an investor myself. It really got me to a point where, all right, this is probably where I should be because there's a lot of knowledge that isn't being put out there, and I feel like I can.
Yeah. No, and that's a great point, right? A lot of the experts we've had on the podcast, you're individuals who are going through it. It's not just something that you sell, but you've experienced, right? You talked about being an investor. You own certain properties,
Yep.
correct? So, tell me, as an investor yourself, you've been through this home insurance, getting a quote, having homeowners insurance. What timeline do you recommend for you as an owner to revise or review with your insurance broker agent, your car insurance policy, your homeowners insurance policy? Because we get that question a lot at the office, right? So what do you recommend?
Yeah, so what I recommend to my clients is usually every 2 to 3 years,
Okay.
right? So I know there's articles out there that say, every 6 months, every year, because you can find some savings in auto insurance or homeowners insurance. But the reality is that there are a lot of carriers out there who want to know
Mm.
how long a client's going to stick. And that makes a difference in the rating that they give you, right? So there can be a carrier who's out there and says, listen, I don't want any clients that have not been with their current carrier for at least 3 years
Right.
or haven't had a certain amount of coverage, right? Because these clients are the ones that are probably going to get more favorable rates for
Mhm.
insurance. Give it some time, every 2 to 3 years. There are those situations, the market that we're in right now, especially, we're seeing a lot of clients that call in, maybe after a year being with a certain carrier, my rates doubled,
Right.
right? It's unfortunate, but those are going to be one-offs in a different kind of insurance market. But I would absolutely advise every 2 to 3 years.
Gotcha. And knowing you as a person, because one of the reasons why, obviously, your expertise, your patience, your experience in the industry for so long, one of the reasons why I recommend you is because you're approachable, right?
Mhm.
You grew up in Hudson County, just like me, right? People can approach you and ask you questions, right? So let's get to know you a little bit more personally, right?
Yeah.
So when you're driving, what music do you listen to?
Wow, variety. I've actually gone through a short period of silence in my car. Believe it or
Silence.
not.
Please
Yeah.
explain that because
I don't know. Early in the morning to the gym,
Okay.
Lately, it's been silence.
Okay.
On the way to pick up my daughter, you would think I need something to amp me up for all the energy a seven,
Yeah.
8 year old now. She just turned 8 last week. Is gonna have silence. But I go from I listen to my '90s, 2000s rap, hip hop, R&B. I love my R&B. But then on the Spanish side, bachata. I
Of
love my
course.
salsa.
Of course.
And I've gotten into Afro beats, man. I love the Afro beats.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I'm kind of everywhere. I work to smooth jazz though. I
I
do
can't
work
relate, but
smooth
okay.
jazz in the background.
Okay.
Try it, man. It works.
You said 90s. I have to ask. Backstreet Boys are in sync.
Neither. I don't think I can recite any song by either of the two groups.
So what boy band did you like listen to at all?
Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Okay. So oh,
I'm trying
but
to keep it real, man.
yeah, no, I appreciate that. Another question I had for you, getting to know you, is do you follow any certain sports teams, things like that?
I'm born Providence, Rhode Island.
Okay.
So I know every time I mention the Red Sox, the
Nah.
Celtics, anything that's New England related, it's because you're a Dominican. No, I was born in Providence, so I have a reason to be. But yeah, I'm a
Gotcha.
diehard Celtics, Red Sox,
Okay.
and Patriots fan. Unfortunately now, but I had a good period, so I'm good with that.
What do you do to unwind? Let's say a long day at the office, quoting insurance policies, answering questions for clients. What do you do when you get home to unwind?
I cook a lot
You cook? All
late,
right. So this is
believe
a
it or not.
surprise to me. I
Yeah.
did not know this.
Yeah,
I'm intrigued. So
I do
please.
cook a lot. Cooking for me is therapy. It really is.
Really?
Yeah. I For a long time I did cook with some light music in the background. As of late, I really can't. But the kids falling asleep, going to bed early. But yeah, I come home, sometimes 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, and cooking really is my thing. I enjoy and I cook from scratch, man. You know,
Gotcha.
the
Okay.
mac and cheese. I'm into making things from scratch. I do want to make my own bread at some
Okay.
point. Yeah,
Okay.
but yeah, I enjoy cooking, man.
I learned something new today.
Yeah.
Now, as an insurance broker, right? You've seen a bunch of stories, I'm sure, crazy stories. What's one thing that comes to mind, a war story that we as viewers can learn from, like that has a moral, right?
Yeah.
Something that we should say, oh, wow, that makes sense. We should learn from this. Does anything come to mind?
100%. And it's an unfortunate story. I mean, not yet because we haven't heard the end of it. Hopefully things go well for him. But I have a client who I spoke with just a couple weeks ago,
Mm.
was purchasing his second property, and walked him through, asked the conversation, how many properties do you own? Has another property, didn't know which of the two was going to be his primary residence.
Mhm.
I explained that he did want to switch his insurance policy for the property he currently owns,
Okay.
because there could be a lot of repercussions if he kept it as a regular homeowner's policy and he wasn't living in there.
And he wasn't living in there. Okay.
Was
Okay.
not living in there, was not his primary residence. He actually had it rented out to tenants. And I got a call, the entire property burnt down, right?
Wow.
Yeah, so now we're in a situation where investigation's going to get done, and who knows, man? There's a lot of situations where insurance carriers, they're not going to pay out. They're looking for a reason not to pay you, right?
Right. Right.
So explain to them, listen, it's important for you to insure this property the right way because the insurance company wants to capture the risk that is really here. And yeah, we can, revisit at some point later on, but for now, I'm just hyper focused on the purchase. And yeah, I got the call, and here we are. Yeah, man.
Well, would that be considered insurance fraud?
Well, that depends
Okay.
on material misrepresentation.
Those are two big
Yes,
ones.
yes. So material misrepresentation is the important term here because and I'm not, I don't work in claims, so I kind of want to wash my hands here. But usually, if there is a material misrepresentation, which you as an attorney can explain what it is, it's if you purposely lie on an application, then that's grounds for voiding a contract, right?
Right.
So
Right.
I'm sure that's probably what they're going to want to figure out now through their investigation.
That's the key that would determine if they're going to cover it or not and things
Yeah.
like that. which is, I think, that's one of the best lessons we can learn from today's episode, right? Is material misrepresentation is it's not just misrepresentation, but something that's material to the discussion or what's at hand,
Yep.
right? So definitely, because we've seen a lot of crackdown on insurance fraud and misrepresentation,
Especially in New Jersey.
in New Jersey, right? So definitely, that's something that you would guide clients on to avoid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. So Ed, what's one thing that viewers from this episode, the number one thing that they should take away from this episode about homeowners insurance, whether it's life insurance, car insurance, what's one thing that you can tell them that they should have a takeaway from?
Especially for individuals like us, building assets and working to build assets, build our net worth,
Right.
make all the money and grow. Insurance is especially important to us,
Cool.
right? Everyone nowadays looking for a lawsuit, a quick come up, right?
Right.
So we have to protect ourselves appropriately. I know insurance does seem like an unnecessary expense until you need it,
Right.
but the how I always explain it to my clients is think about a seatbelt. When you get into a car, you put on your seatbelt, right? You're not anticipating a car accident.
Right.
You're not. You put on a seatbelt because you want to stay safe. You want your kids to be safe in the case of an auto accident. And you should think of insurance the same way. You purchase insurance not anticipating that. So you hope that you don't need to use that insurance policy.
Right.
There should be a negative ROI, a negative return on investment for purchasing insurance, for purchasing auto insurance, homeowners insurance. So just make sure that you're a lot more diligent than you were yesterday before you heard this, with your purchase of insurance and asking the right questions, right? Just make sure that you're working with someone that offers transparency, and is detail oriented, because a lot of the things that are on insurance policies, there's a lot of detail that you're probably missing out on if you only had a 1-minute conversation with your insurance agent, insurance broker. So focus on insurance.
I'll take it one step further. I feel like you'll be the one now with the new cars where you don't put on your seatbelt and there's a noise that goes ding, ding, ding. That's you reminding us to take out.
Yeah.
That's basically you.
Yeah. And with life insurance, it's funny because I thought about this a couple weeks ago with life insurance specifically is, when I first started in sales, I don't consider this a sales role. I consider myself a counselor, within insurance. But with life insurance specifically, I kind of rewired myself to think, listen, you're not chasing someone down to make a sale. You're chasing someone down to save their kids' financial future, their spouse's financial future. And that's helped me a lot. And yeah, so I am that ding ding when the seatbelt isn't on.
Now every time I'm in the car and that goes off, I'm gonna think of you.
Yeah.
Ed, thank you so much for coming today. I think that a lot of viewers, and myself even, right, I include myself, when we think of insurance, we think it's boring. Like you said, we don't think we need it. I think that can be attributed to a lot of misinformation, right? And I encourage everyone watching this episode, reach out to us. We'll put you in connection with Ed. We'll also provide his contact information because he is approachable. We can have this conversation just like I had with him about your own needs, wants, desires to better protect your family, your assets, right?
Yep.
Especially if you're building those assets and trying to progress in life and move forward, right? Because we are. That's all what we're trying to do is move forward. So Ed, thank you very much for coming in today. We loved having you and see you soon.
No, thank you very much, David.